Her true story from California. They ignored my cancer diagnosis like it was inconvenient, so I quietly checked into a beachfront villa and cut ties for good. Now they call 99+ times. I don't answer. Mom, are you looking for attention again? This is ridiculous. Don't bother us with your phony illnesses. If you are not going to get better, then just go live in a nursing home. You'll get healthy there in no time. My daughter's voice spun through the living room like ice shards, hanging in the stale air while my son sat on the couch, eyes cast downward, silent as a statue. The accusation stung worse than anything I had felt in years. I had come here to share terrifying news that my body was failing me, and I had expected empathy. Instead, I was met with scoffing and cold dismissal. My hands trembled as I pushed the envelope across the glass coffee table, the weight of the words inside heavy between us. My daughter's lips curled into what she must have thought was a triumphant sneer. My son avoided eye contact. I realized then that they did not see me as their mother. They saw me as an inconvenience, a burden they were done carrying. I clutched the envelope in both hands, my resolve cracking. I opened it, my fingers shaking against the paper, and removed the doctor's letter with clinical precision. Dear Mrs. Ellen Harris, confirmed diagnosis of stage 2 breast cancer. Requires immediate treatment. I read those words aloud, my voice brittle. I have been diagnosed with cancer, I said with a weakness I could not mask. My daughter snorted, crossing her arms. Cancer, right? My son's cheeks blanched, but he remained silent. I felt as though I were speaking to a wall. How long have you known? My daughter asked, though there was no warmth in her voice, only judgment. A few weeks, I admitted. My chest felt hollow, my lungs losing air. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Her voice sharpened, as though I had been hiding secrets rather than carrying a tumor in my chest. Because I didn't want to worry you, I answered with what felt like feeble reasoning. She threw her head back and laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the emptiness of the room. You're not dying, Mom, she said. You're just seeking attention, she repeated, her tone so sharp it made my body ache. My son looked down at the floor as though the carpet might swallow him whole. When I glanced his way, his eyes flinched with an emotion I could not place, maybe shame, maybe regret, but he did not lift his head. He did not speak. That silence felt louder than any argument. I tried again. My voice broke. I've been scared. I don't know what to do. Please, just... I could not finish. Tears gathered in my eyes, but I blinked them away. Please support me? Her response was a sigh, then rolling of shoulders. You wanted therapy or something. We don't really have time for this. She did not hesitate. She did not look remorseful. She said it like a verdict. My illness was a time suck she could not accommodate, an inconvenience in her schedule. She had words for me, but never the word mother. The word I longed to hear was not said. I closed my eyes. I could smell the faint scent of jasmine from the welcome arrangement on the corner table, the fragrance drifting from the vase I had bought for their first home 6 years ago. I had believed in that home, in this family. I had believed in them. I had carried their childhoods on my strength, midnight feedings, lost shoes, endless paperwork. I had always believed that blood mattered, that we stood by each other when storms came. But this was a storm like no other. And they watched me drown. My breathing shuddered. My body shook. I pressed my hand against my chest as though my heart might shatter. In my mind, I spoke to the walls. Why am I so easy to dismiss? They wouldn't think it was funny if the roles were reversed. They would worry for their own children. But I was the other one, aging, sick, suddenly worthless. Then I remembered the pile of mail I left sitting on the kitchen counter. I moved mechanically, picking a stack of envelopes, shoving and bundling them into a plastic bag I had lying around. It was a small gesture, a preparation I could still manage. My fingers trembling, I stuffed the mail sack under the kitchen sink, as though hiding its existence might hide my pain as well. I turned around. The room was frozen. They stared at me briefly, no guilt in their eyes, only the same cold shine of detachment. She said, "Do what you need to do, Mom, but don't expect us to help." Her words hovered in the air when I left the living room. I walked upstairs to the guest bedroom. I'd packed the small suitcase I'd left ready for weekend visits. 2 pairs of underwear, a sweater, a robe. I slid the doctor's letter inside. I packed it gently, reverently. This was more than an overnight bag. It was the beginning of a long goodbye. I looked at the framed family photo on the bedside table, a younger version of us, smiling, vibrant. I picked up the frame and with a shaky exhale, turned it face down. It stared at the bedpost, a reminder of the facade we'd maintained. I put the frame back, chose a corner, and set the bag down next to it. I took out my phone and created a file named Villa. I typed words I didn't yet fully believe. Villa reservation, awaiting confirmation, check-in date. I pressed save. Downstairs, I paused at the front door. I looked back at the room I wouldn't sleep in again tonight. The soft bed, the bedside lamp, the curtains I helped choose. I reached out and touched the doorframe, feeling the smooth wood and its memories. I swallowed the ache and opened the front door. For the first time in years, I walked out on them and on the life I had built, not because I gave up, but because I deserved more than pity-laced dismissal. I slid into my car, my suitcase in the back seat, and closed the door behind me. My pulse roared, but I felt alive. I would fight. I would heal. I would no longer tolerate being treated like a burden, even by those who called me Mom. As I drove away, the evening sun cast long shadows across the driveway. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Inside me, a seed of resolve took root. I was leaving pain behind, but I was not leaving hope. Not yet. The morning fog clung to the hospital windows when I arrived, draped around the building in a pale veil of uncertainty. I carried the same small purse, the same old cardigan, but my stomach churned with an anxiety that felt new. I had called my daughter, once, to say the doctor wanted scans. She said she was busy and would text me later. My son texted that he had a meeting. He could not come. It struck me in that moment. I was entering a diagnosis alone. There would be no hand to hold, no voice to whisper reassurance. On the elevator ride up, I gripped the handrail as though I would slip away otherwise. My mind replayed the morning's conversation, her laugh, his silence. When I stepped out onto the 9th floor, the antiseptic smell and the hushed hum of conversations around me made me feel like a trespasser, a woman whose body was falling apart, but whose place in her own family was already slipping. At the consultation room door, I paused and touched the cool brass handle, steadying my breath. I entered and saw the oncologist's kind eyes behind her glasses, and immediately I felt the loneliness deepen. She greeted me gently, motioning to sit at a small table. The exam room felt too bright, too sterile. I sat down, smoothing my skirt across my thighs. "We found a mass in your left breast," the doctor began, speaking slowly. "It is suspicious for malignancy. We need a biopsy." I nodded, trying to make sense of the words. What stage? It came out quieter than I intended. "We cannot tell until biopsy results. Could be stage 1, could be above, but we will treat aggressively if needed." My heart pounded. I wanted to call my daughter, to hear her voice, and I wanted my son to squeeze my hand, but none of that happened. The doctor explained side effects, chemo, radiation, testing, follow-up. I scribbled notes in my aged handwriting, but my focus flicked to the door, empty. When I asked if I could have someone with me, she discussed family support, even therapies. I said I'd ask them. My voice trembled faintly. She nodded and closed the folder. I looked down at my hands, the ones that once carried groceries for grandchildren, that taught children at Sunday school, now shaking in front of authorities who did not know me inside out, like a mother should me. My aloneness filled the room, but I told myself I had to step forward. I had to heal. The doctor offered scans next Monday. I scheduled them, kept going. I grabbed the willow tree figure the doctor used to explain scanning positions, clutching it like a talisman, and made my way to the parking garage alone. On the ride home, California's freeway shimmered under midday sun. Cars zipped by as if nothing had happened. I stayed in my lane, pulse still ticking loudly against my ribs. I made a right turn onto Redwood Street, back into the neighborhood where I once belonged. But when I pulled into the driveway, I felt like an outsider to my own life. Inside, I found both daughter and son in the living room. They were talking, too calmly. The television flickered. I stood in the doorway, greeting them with a polite, "I'm home." They looked up, jaws tightening. I said, "The appointment, the biopsy is scheduled." My daughter's eyes shifted to the screen. "That's great, Mom." My son nodded, not leaving his seat. No one asked how I felt. No one offered water or sat with me. The room resumed its normal rhythm, as if I had just stepped in from the rain. I walked to the couch and sat down 20 seconds too slow. There were no hugs, no inquiries. My body ached from the hospital couch, but deeper still, I felt the ache of being invisible to them, in my own home. That night I cooked dinner alone. Boiled pasta, red sauce, a few meatballs. I poured myself a glass of wine. I ate in silence at the kitchen island, plate humming with echo. No one sat with me. No one asked how my appointment went. No one said my name. At bedtime, I overheard them whispering softly in their bedroom. I knew they were upset, but angry at me? At the situation? I did not know. I lay awake in the guest room, sleeping alone, tracing the grain of the wood headboard. Even the familiar creaks of the old house sounded hollow. In the following days, I went to another test, another scan. Each time I tried to reach them. Each time they said they were busy. My daughter even said, "Mom, this isn't going to stop us from living our lives." The words they spoke left me breathless. I realized they saw me not as a mother in need of love, but as a project or a distraction, a crisis they wished to bypass. One evening, I walked into the living room while my daughter cleared the dinner plates. I said, "I could use someone to check in on me." She turned and glared, false sweetness on her face. I did check. I asked how your appointment was. "I'm busy too, Mom." She walked away, arms folding across her chest, leaving me standing, alone. I took a seat on the porch swing and stared at the yard I had planted. I thought of the million times I sent them cookies and letters, whispered prayers over their forever home. I thought of the nights I had stayed awake worrying about them, and I thought, maybe this time, the caring needed to come from me. I felt the urgency in my bones to not just survive this diagnosis, but also to preserve the dignity I saw slipping away. If they would not stand by me, then I would stand up for myself. And so, I began to quietly scan beachfront villa listings. The night I made the decision was one I will never forget. I could not sleep. In the silence of a darkened bedroom, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan's blades as they spun tired circles above me. My mind twisted through memories of hospitals, appointment reminders, and whispered phone calls. I thought of my daughter's mocking laugh, of my son's distracted eyes, of the ache inside my body and soul. I realized I was not just fighting cancer. I was fighting for the dignity they had slipped away. The thought struck me like cold water. I deserved more than waiting for them to text, to call, to remember. I deserved my peace. And the villa by the ocean came to me like an invitation, soft, persistent, a place where my lungs could fill with genuine air, where the horizon stretched farther than disappointment, where my nights would be filled with waves, not silent sorrow. I rose from bed, my feet cold against the floorboards, and made tea. I sipped slowly as I opened my laptop on the kitchen table. I searched in the darkest hours, beachfront villa rentals, peaceful seaside homes, tranquil retreats, until sunrise painted the sky outside. I found one, a small villa perched on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, far enough from town to be quiet, close enough to walk to the sand. Its walls were terracotta. Windows faced east for sunrises. It was affordable enough with my nest egg, just enough to pay a few months in advance without asking them for a penny. I filled in the online form, skipped the promotional offers for expensive extras, clicked Pay Now, and, just like that, my email confirmed the booking. The confirmation arrived before dawn, a first victory, a moment that was only mine. I tucked it inside my purse, sliding it into the pocket where I kept my medical scans. I closed the laptop with a quiet click. Then I packed. If they asked, I would say I was leaving for spa therapy. If they wondered why I needed to be alone, well, they had already made me feel alone in a crowded house. I placed enough clothes for a few weeks, a sweater, yoga pants, pajamas in soft pink. I added my toothbrush, the small mirror I used to apply lipstick on Sundays, the loose-leaf tea I drank when I wrote. I included the copy of my will at their request, neatly folded and tucked in the suitcase, unfinished business in case they ever cared. I did not tell them. I would tell them nothing until I left. But I did leave one note. I wrote on a pale index card with blue ink. Mom went to a mental hospital, not a nursing home. Mom loves the sea. Mom. I placed it on the entryway bench under the coat rack. When they saw it, They would know I had chosen something more than theirs. Just after dawn, I slipped out. The sky was soft and gray, stitched with early light. I did not look back. I pulled my suitcase behind me, closing the front door behind me, with the last sound of my old life echoing in the hallway. The drive to the coast was gentle, highway curves, sunrise drizzle, a toll booth that felt like a threshold. I paid with a card I kept just for myself. I did not worry about dusting fingerprints. I belonged to no one but myself now. On arrival, I found the villa exactly as advertised. A small porch with 2 chairs, the smell of salt and eucalyptus, the windows open to the sound of surf. I stepped in, closing the door behind me, and made my way to a window. I gazed at the rooftop that caught morning light, at the pale horizon, at the morning sky that felt infinite. I unpacked slowly. I placed the index card and the bag containing the doctor's letter next to the bedside lamp. It glowed gently against clean cotton sheets. I stepped onto the porch and felt the ocean air settle inside my lungs. I nearly wept. I wrapped my arms around myself like a soft hug, a mother holding her own heart for once. Then I walked to the sand. The beach was empty except for gulls and an occasional early jogger. The surf drifted in rhythmic breezes. I took off my shoes and socks, fingers flexing against wet sand. I inhaled deeply, closing my eyes with a slight smile. I felt my body respond to ocean currents in a way it hadn't in months. My heart slowed. There was no guilt. There was no fear. Just the knowledge that I had left a place that hurt me, walked into the light of some place that healed me. That evening, I wrote a letter on villa stationery, 2 paragraphs, calm and firm. Dear family, I love you, but you do not love me in the way I need right now. I am not less of a mother for needing peace. I have checked into a beachfront villa, paid through July, and plan to stay as long as it takes for me to breathe. Please do not call or visit. I need time to process this diagnosis in solitude. Love always, Mom. I sealed the envelope, left it on the kitchen counter where they would find it if they came. I didn't send it. I would let them understand by the footprints I left behind. I folded the letter in my journal and set the date, June 1, 2025. That night, I lay in a bed I chose. I closed my eyes to the sound of the surf. I thought of bloodlines and betrayals, of fear and freedom, and I drifted into sleep, the first sleep in months that tasted peaceful. I had chosen myself, and that choice would become my foundation. When I pushed open the front door of the villa for the first time, I was struck by the breadth of sky and ocean that lay before me. The door swung inward to reveal a room washed in warm sunlight, bleached cedar floors, soft white furniture, and, at the far end, French doors that opened onto a porch overlooking the Pacific. The air carried salt and distant seaweed, every breath like a gentle, healing balm for my lungs. I stood still, suitcase in hand, and let the scent fill me, unwrapping years of worry with each inhale. Inside, the space was elegantly simple. A sofa faced the glass, arranged so the morning sun would land on its cushions. A wood-burning fireplace waited for evenings, a stack of driftwood beside it. The walls were uncluttered but adorned with soft-hued watercolors, pastel images of the surf, the shorelines, the horizon at twilight. On a nearby table sat a journal, a pen, and a tidy pile of postcards ready for handwritten notes. It felt less like borrowed space and more like a shelter I had found. I placed my suitcase next to the bed, delighting in the mattress's gentle give and the crispness of the linen sheets. I pulled back the curtains to reveal the ocean, its surface glowing like scattered coins under the midday sun. I moved to the porch and placed both hands on the railing, gazing out at the waves rolling in cool rhythm. A seagull cried overhead, and I closed my eyes as a breeze lifted my hair away from my face. For the first time in months, I felt a shiver of joy run through me. That night, I drank tea from a cup I brought with me, not one of theirs, but my own favorite, chipped and beloved. I opened my journal and wrote, "I am here. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to heal." Then I went to sleep, listening to the hush of waves, a lullaby I had forgotten I needed. Mornings began with yoga on the sand. I rolled out my mat facing east, where the tide lapped gently, the sky showing first traces of dawn. I moved through gentle stretches and poses, breathing in salt spray with each breath, feeling a calm settle into my joints and sinew. The first day I could barely lift my arms above my head without trembling. By the end of the week I found strength I thought I had lost. When someone passed by, I greeted them softly with, "Good morning," and they would smile back with a nod. It was small kindness, but powerful affirmation. I was no longer invisible. I walked along the shoreline each afternoon, barefoot. I pressed the wet sand between my toes and watched as the sea foam dissolved under my feet. I collected a few smooth shells and placed them in a glass jar on the windowsill. I remembered childhood vacations when I and my husband watched sunsets from similar shorelines. I felt the bubble of gratitude and sadness blend into something richer, resilience. Evenings were for writing letters. I used the stationery supplied by the villa, stamped each with a deep blue wax seal. The words were simple: "Do not call. I need quiet." Each letter was placed in an envelope near the front door, visible but untouchable. In my journal I wrote, "I love them, but I need love for myself more right now." Then I sealed the envelopes and tucked the keychain into my pocket. The gestures felt gentle but firm. Each day unfolded like a fresh page. I lingered longer at the horizon, letting the sun's amber glow soften my thoughts. I wandered trails, paused at tide pools, watched pelicans sweep the surface in silent arcs. At night, I read a novel I had once abandoned, this time aloud, letting the words fill the villa with hope. My sleep deepened, my body healed. I faced treatments with calm, knowing peace awaited me. One evening, tea in hand, clouds rolling in, I whispered to no one but myself, "Maybe I'll stay forever." It was not guilt, not escape. It was possibility, and finally, it was mine. A week later, I received a string of voicemails. My phone lay silent on the table. I had let it beep quietly so as not to disturb the light and salt and sky. I listened later. "Mom, please come home. We miss you. I'm sorry." I did not respond. I placed the phone face down and walked outside, letting the wind carry their words away. My peace was more important than their guilt. One evening, after dinner, I sat on the porch with a friend I met online, a woman who had a villa next door. We laughed as we shared stories of illness and healing and the complexity of family love. "Here," she said, staring toward the open Pacific, "we belong to the ocean." I nodded, feeling whole. I walked her to the gate, then returned alone to watch the moon rise silver over the water. I closed my eyes, thinking of my children back home. A part of me ached, but not for them. I realized I missed who I was before the diagnosis, a woman who laughed easily, who loved wholeheartedly, who set boundaries without expectation of pity. I understood that I could never fully bridge the gap with them, but that did not matter. I still had myself. On the final morning before leaving the villa, I wrote one last letter. "Thank you, sea. Thank you, walls that hold my heart. Thank you, me." Then I packed slowly, leaving each shell by the window, each photograph on the shelf. I left the key in the lock and taped a note to the front door. "Villa closed. Mom is finding peace. Do not disturb." I walked away, knowing I would return someday. Back in my own home now, I carry the ocean inside me. I still feel integrally that I made the right decision, not to react, but to respond. I honor my body by feeding it rest and fresh air. I honor my soul by giving it space and dignity. I listen to the sound of waves in my memory every night as I fall asleep. It reminds me that healing can happen when we choose stillness over expectations, love over obligation. I will always love my children, but my peace was not theirs to hold. My health was not theirs to negotiate. I found freedom by the sea, and I brought it home in my bones, in my smile, in my calm voice. I choose me, and that is more than enough. I woke to the sound of birds and the gentle hum of waves brushing against the cliff below. It was the kind of calm that felt sacred, until I noticed my phone lighting up across the coffee table. I reached for it and froze when I saw the notification. 99 plus missed calls. My pulse fluttered, but the room remained silent. I tapped the phone screen and opened the call log. There they were. 89 calls from Mom, 30 more from Mom. Each one added onto my heart, but not onto my hope. I didn't feel fear, only a detachment I'd built with intention. It was their panic, an echo of desperation more than love. I opened my messages app. The screen showed lines of texts. Mom, please let me in. We love you, please pick up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Each one made my throat tighten. But I knew they didn't know me. They didn't know this person I carried inside, someone who chose herself when nobody else would. I let the phone rest quietly against the oak table, knowing I wouldn't answer. I reached for the settings and recorded a voicemail greeting. I spoke slowly and firmly. Hello, you have reached Ellen Harris. I'm not available. If this is important, please email me. Thank you. I listened to the playback. It sounded calm, dignified. It was the boundary I needed. Underneath the broadcast of messages, I wrote a response. To my children, I hear you, but I do not respond to pressure. I am healing in solitude. Do not call again. Thank you, Mom. I did not send it. I saved it in drafts. I didn't know if I would ever send it. The words sat on the screen like permission. Permission to stay quiet, to continue unbothered. Later that day, as sunlight warmed the villa siding, I stood by the window, looking out at the creaking gate, and then I saw them, my daughter and son, standing on the gravel path, their faces drawn and tired. My daughter held a suitcase. My son's shoulders slumped. He looked at the window and whispered something I could not hear. I did not step back or forward. I simply watched. They saw the curtains move, and she gasped. He swallowed. I opened the door a crack, enough that light spilled onto the threshold. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. Mom, she began, voice strangled. Why didn't you answer? Please? She tried to step forward. My son reached to hold her arm. She needs space, he said softly. They looked at the lock, its brass surface shining. You're not locked out, I said quietly. I'm locked in. My daughter choked. My son glanced down. We're sorry we didn't help, he said. Please let us in. I watched the air shift. Their desperation felt real, but so did my need for calm. I took a slow breath. I'm here to heal, I said. In peace, not to relive rejection. They looked at each other. My daughter touched the lock. My son's lips quivered. I had expected rage, demands, bargaining. Instead, I found remorse. It didn't erase the hurt, but it quieted the storm. My daughter's hand lingered near the door. She didn't unlock it. I stepped back. The silence settled between us. I understand, she whispered. If you don't want us, I can go. I closed the door gently. I turned away and walked inside. They remained on the porch, staring. I placed the phone on silent. I watched them, then walked away without glancing back. That evening, the horizon bled pink and gold. I sat in the beach chair, tea in hand, feeling every wave echo through me. They stayed near the door for an hour, then quietly left. I did not cry. I did not cheer. I just sat. The ocean whispered, "You are here. You belong here." The next day, I found an email notification. It was from my son. Mom, I'm sorry. I understand why you did it. I love you. I hope you can forgive me. Is there a time I can come by? I stared at it for a moment. I felt relief, but not need. I replied simply, "Thank you. I am healing right now. We can talk later." Mom. It was hard to stop hoping they would care. But peace taught me that boundaries are not walls. They are doors I choose when to open. I practiced yoga at dawn, walked barefoot on the shore, wrote about waves instead of wounds. The phone stayed silent. The lock stayed turned. They called 99 times. I answered none. On the fourth day I saw them, Cam with her phone raised, Jacob at the door, mouthing please. But I stayed seated, hands around my coffee. This was my home, my breath, my life, and they were on the outside now. Where their silence had once put me, I slowly rose and moved to the living room window, pulling back the sheer curtains. I framed them exactly in the center of my vision. "You're on the outside," I said softly, addressing their unreadable faces. "I'm in." Cam's lower lip trembled. The corners of her lips twitched between anger and relief. Jacob's eyes glistened with emotion. He swallowed and looked away. "Mom, please," he whispered, voice tight. Cam kept filming, but I found her gaze caught somewhere between fear and longing, caught in the frame of the phone camera she held aloft. I inhaled deeply, measured, and stepped forward so they could see the rise and fall of the canvas chair across from me. I did not step outside. I did not unlock anything. I remained inside my glass sanctuary. You drove 6 hours for this? I asked quietly. Or are you just here for clickbait? Cam's phone shook. She looked away, blinking back tears. We're sorry, she said, voice cracking. We didn't realize how hard it was for you. Didn't realize? My voice was calmer than it had been in months. You laughed when I told you. Not long ago, you laughed. Silence. They stood there, shuffling their feet on the porch boards, letting dusk settle around them. I tilted my head, watching their reactions. Camilla, you kept that lock change a secret, I said. You took away my keys so you could control when I entered my own home. She looked down. I could see shame in that posture, even her jaw softened, backlit by the sun that I now called my sunrise. Jacob swallowed. We wanted to make it right, he murmured. I felt the tension ease inside me. But I was not swayed. I had worked too hard to rebuild a sense of self. This was not about their apologies. It was about autonomy and respect. I stepped back from the window, started to close the curtains slowly. Their figures remained visible for just a moment more in the glass illusions, caught between worlds. Before the drapes closed fully, I said, I don't need a nursing home, or pity, or control. What I need is peace. Cam's phone slipped from her hand and clattered on the porch floor. She did not pick it up. Night had thickened by the time I finished sealing the curtains. The last edge drifted closed. I faced the room lit only by a single lamp, and I felt something like calm pulse through me, stronger than any other feeling I'd had since the diagnosis. They turned to leave. I heard the soft click of their car door, the engine revving. I stood quietly and watched as the taillights shrank into the rim of the driveway. I did not rush to the door. I did not cry. I just stood. A week later, I received a short text message from Cam. I'm proud of you. I replied, thank you. That reply was all the opening I needed, and all I would allow. I noticed the missed call badge fade from 99 plus to 55 over the course of the morning, then drop again to 32. Each ring, each text felt like a tiny crack in their hearts. Maybe cracks I had accepted, maybe cracks they were just starting to feel. Their calls had slowed, but they still came. I did not need to see them. I understood. Late morning, I found a message from my son. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'll drive down this weekend if that's okay. Just tell me a time. A dozen others followed, pleading, apologizing, promising. One from Camilla. Let us see you, please. We miss you. I set my teacup on the saucer and fingered the screen. My heart warmed at the sincerity, but steadied with resolve. I tapped out a single, measured response. I am not responding because I chose to live in peace, not to wait anymore. I love you, but I prioritize my calm. Love, Mom. I hit send. Then I set the cup aside and went to the porch to hear the ocean's answer. The sound of waves has always been my pulse. It pounded in the silence after their messages. It let me know I was not alone. My phone chimed again. Camilla. Mom, we understand. Thank you for your truth. Even that small acknowledgement felt like a sunrise. Their words had moved from guilt-laden pleas to respectful distance. It wasn't hasty forgiveness. It was a step toward something real. That weekend, I walked along the beach when the tide was low. I wore my grandmother's old trench coat and felt it whisper over my shoulders. I carried her strength. A soft voice echoed from behind me. I turned to see Jacob, walking slowly but with certainty. He stopped 3 paces away. He spoke first. Mom. My chest tightened, but I stood firm. Yes, Jacob. He took a breath, glancing at the rolling water. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I didn't realize what I lost until you left. He put his hand on my shoulder, light and respectful. I closed my eyes and nodded once. No apologies needed, I said softly. I didn't leave because I hated you. I left because I had to save myself. I looked at his face, hesitant, raw. You know what a harsh place home became. I chose sanctuary. He exhaled. I do. And I wish I had seen it sooner. I wish I had helped you. My eyes drew along the foam at his feet. I know. I touched a hand to his. I let my heart reflect the ocean's patient rhythm. We can heal, but we can't go back. We can go forward. He wiped his eyes. I understand. Mom, if you ever want company, call me. His voice cracked. I found myself smiling, then I paused. Just, your presence is enough, and I meant it. He didn't have to fix anything. He nodded, respect in his eyes. We walked a short way together, then stopped and said goodbye. No promises, no pressure, just a quiet moment with forgiveness in the salt shadow. That afternoon, I returned to the villa and found a message from Camila. Mom, thank you for saying what you needed to say. I'm rooting for your peace. I let it rest without reply. Peace, not reunion, is what I chose. Over the next few days, more calls trickled in, softer this time, not demands, but gentle waves seeking to reach me. I let them go to voicemail. I never listened. My boundaries were intact, my heart steady. Sometimes I thought of forgiving them fully. Other times I thought forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about knowing I could choose freedom over resentment. On the morning of my next scan appointment, I drove to the clinic rather than staying here. I felt gratitude for the villa's sanctuary and for the healing each wave had brought. The technician asked me how I felt, and I said, centered. They checked my blood pressure, and it was calm. That's when I remembered that peace shows up in the details. That evening, I penned a letter to both of them, not for delivery, but to capture my truth. I choose silence, not because I am hurt, but because I am hopeful. I choose peace, not because I deny our past, but because I believe in my future. I hope you know that I love you still, even if I live apart. I sealed it and tucked it in my journal. I let myself hope for a simple friendship with them someday. Not the mother and child dependency of old, but a life of mutual respect, shared by choice, not convenience. In the coming weeks, I hosted a small gathering at the villa, just a few women I met online, each with their own scars. We laughed over tea and yoga mats, our presence forming a circle of trust. Sometimes I spoke of my family, choosing words carefully, but not hiding truth. They listened without judgment. That was enough for me. People often think losing a family means losing everything, but I learned it could also mean finding something more: dignity, autonomy, belonging, born of choice. One morning, I looked at my phone and saw 2 missed calls, both from Camila. Beneath it, a single message: thinking of you, sending love. My heart fluttered, not because I needed to answer, but because I knew she learned something too, that I didn't delete her number, that I didn't block them, that I was ready when they were. I replied, thank you. I'm okay. No phone call, no request to visit, just a simple acknowledgement. And I went to the cliff to watch dawn light up the ocean. That night, I wrote in my journal, I don't chase reconciliation, I savor serenity. If they come, I will greet them openly, but until then, I walk forward, unhurried, unbroken. I closed the book and looked at the Pacific through the sliding door. The sky was a watercolor wash of rose and amber, and the breeze that drifted in smelled like salt and something softer. Maybe peace. I wrapped the shawl tighter around my shoulders, not because I was cold, but because I wanted to feel held. This was the life I had quietly claimed when no one thought I would. Every morning, I walk barefoot down to the shore and let the waves kiss my feet. I listen to the ocean like it is telling me secrets. In the quiet hours, I paint, I breathe, I write. I live. Once I waited for their calls. I counted the hours, the days. Now I let the phone ring. I let it be. Last week, the doctor said my cancer had shrunk more than expected. I smiled. Not just at the good news, but because I knew why. My healing began not in a hospital, but the moment I chose myself. This villa is not an escape, it's a return. To stillness, to strength, to a self that never needed approval, just a place to be. Late one afternoon, I texted both of them from the villa porch, wishing you both well in your lives. I'm choosing healing, calm, and freedom now. If you ever regret how you treated me, I have forgiven you. I'm living for myself. I hit send. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't need one. I just wanted them to know I wasn't angry, I was whole. That night, I stepped outside as the sun cast its final glow. The ocean mirrored the sky in gentle silence. I lifted my cup and whispered to the sea, I live for me now, not waiting for them anymore. I smiled and closed my eyes, feeling the breeze like a benediction. To everyone watching Grandma True Stories, I want you to remember this. Dignity is not given, it is claimed. Through boundaries, through self-care, through standing still when the world expects you to move. Even and especially when you are sick. You do not need to become invisible. If you have ever been told you're too much or not enough, this story is for you. You deserve compassion, not pity. You deserve rooms full of care, not empty silence. So please, subscribe to Grandma True Stories. Here we honor the voices of women who refuse to shrink into the margins. Here we witness resilience that chooses calm over chaos, self-respect over obedience. Because every grandma deserves peace, every survivor deserves recognition, and every woman deserves to live on her own terms, even in the face of illness, even when those closest to her say otherwise. Thank you for listening.